everybody. This is Maxine Taylor. Welcome to my very first edition of Movers and Shakers. And my first guest is one of my favorite people in the whole wide world. Some of you know Roberta Grimes, but if you don't know her now, you will. Roberta Grimes is an Austin-based business attorney who had two extraordinary experiences of light when she was a child. And what that did was it propelled her to study death and the afterlife. Now that may sound pretty heavy duty, but wait till you hear Roberta. I do have to tell you that this is not somebody, who just tuned in. Roberta, as I said, is a practicing attorney. She is a graduate of Smith College and Boston University School of Law. So, without further ado, please, I want to welcome you, Roberta, to Movers and Shakers. Thank you for being my first guest.
Oh, I'm so honored to be your first guest. These are big shoes to fill.
Oh, but you'll do them beautifully. Will you please explain to everybody how you got, I didn't even mention your books. Wait a minute. Don't start yet. Don't start. You're going to want to get a copy of Roberta's books. The first one, The Fun of Dying. What a grabber for a title. And the second one, The Fun of Staying in Touch. And so you know where this show is going. And you can tell that Roberta is a loving being, filled with life and love. So, Roberta, honey, tell us how an attorney started writing books and got into all of this.
Well, I did the research because I was curious. Because I had had those two experiences of light, I always knew there was something behind the curtain. I realized only after the fact that it's kind of scary to research the afterlife, because what if there's nothing there? What if it's all bad? I didn't even think about that at the time because I saw light, I heard a loving voice, and I had to know where that came from. So I spent about half a century just trying to figure that out. And when I did figure it out, I, at about the same time, decided I would give my life to God, which was April of 2009. I'm not sure even why, but I just felt the need to do that. I had had a wonderful life. I figured it was God's turn. And also, I sort of thought I should clean up my act because I hadn't been taking the things seriously that I should have been taking seriously. But within months, I was writing The Fun of Dying. I didn't even know I was going to write a book. And the titles were given to me. There are three in this series. The third one is The Fun of Growing Forever. It'll be out in 2017. But it's been so much fun. I mean, the book titles understate how much fun it has been for me to do this work. It's the best.
Well, I can tell that you are filled with joy because you have found your passion. And
yes. But Maxine, everybody needs to know this stuff. It's all good news. Most people are so afraid. They're afraid of God. They're afraid of death. They're afraid to live. What happens when you know where we go and what's going on and who's behind it all? What happens when you know that for sure is you forget every fear you ever had. There's no more fear ever. And that by itself, frankly, is worth the effort of doing this research. But it's all really good news.
Well, let me ask you, where do we go? What is it like? Just tell us. People are dying to know that. No pun intended.
People are dying to know that. Well, the thing is, there are at least 7 levels of afterlife reality that exist exactly where we are. So dying is as easy as changing channels. If you think of your mind as a television set, and right now you're tuned to that particular body on this level of reality, which we think is the lowest, we're not sure. And when you die, all that happens is your mind, that television set, tunes to a slightly higher channel, and it picks up a whole new solid reality in the same place. It's in the same place. So everything is right here.
So now I have to ask questions for our viewers because they're not here to ask them. So if it's taking place right where we are. Obviously, it's a different frequency naturally.
Right.
Um,
Right.
but because it's a higher frequency, we're not going to go bumping into people on the other side, or are we?
Not at all. Right. That's right. No, fortunately, there's, and we have to understand a few things about the greater reality we enter at death. It's huge. It's probably, every one of those levels is probably about the size of the universe. It's much less crowded there than here. Everything that exists is energy. Even this, what we think of as solid, is really not solid. This level of reality is energy too. And so it's easy for it all to fit in the same place. That's basically a principle of physics, that an infinite amount of energy can exist in the same place.
Well, let me ask you this: the fun of dying. I love your books. Love them. I won't lend them. I won't lend them to people.
Thank you. I'll send you some more. You can give them to your friends.
Well, everybody will love reading this book, and of course, the fun of staying in touch. And just after seeing you, people are going to say, well, she seems to be so filled with joy and love and happiness. So why do you say that dying is fun?
Because that's the word, or some variation of it, that the dead most commonly use to talk about where it is and what it's like there. People have come up to me when I've given talks, and they've said, you should have not have called it that, because I had cancer and I almost died and it was not fun. And no, you're right. Getting there is not fun, because you're in a body that's trying not to die. And being in a body trying not to die is not any fun. So I'm sorry about that. But once you're in the process of dying, it starts to be really enjoyable. And that's a surprise, I think, to people. But it's certainly nothing to fear. Everything about it is good news.
Oh, I love that. Now, there are certain stages in the death process. From what I understand, correct?
Yeah, there are about 4, although it's sort of arbitrary. When you are in the process of a natural death, and it's important that people understand that we plan our deaths, we plan our lives, and in the process of planning our lives, we plan in 2, sometimes 3 exit points that our higher consciousness can choose to take when we've got most of the good we can out of this lifetime. Nobody wants to be here. This isn't fun. The fun part, it comes after this. So our higher consciousness will make the decision. And then we will enter the death process, usually an illness, but could be an accident or some other thing. But when we are close to dying, one of the first things, 2 things happen. Number 1, we suddenly feel better. This is a sign death is within about 24 to 48 hours when suddenly we feel better. I know that's counterintuitive, but at about that time or soon thereafter, we start to see people we used to think were dead. And they appear in our rooms. They look solid. They look young, healthy, happy. Typically, they're people, but they could be pets. All our pets that we ever loved are there. So that's another happy thing. It's all happy things. And so as soon as you see your mom and she looks, 28, and she's there with your dad, or maybe with her first husband, who knows, maybe somebody else, suddenly you realize everything is probably okay, because if she made it, I bet I will as well. And then so that's sort of the first stage, that sort of being greeted by our loved ones and feeling a little better and starting to really disengage. At the time when we start to see people appearing around our bed that we used to think were no longer alive, at about that time we usually stop communicating with our loved ones. So if you're in a situation where you're helping someone die and they suddenly go quiet and maybe you're looking at a corner of the room, they're talking in their mind with people that they can see and you can't. And this is natural, and you should let them do that. Don't worry about them. They're happy. They're very excited, actually. You may not be able to tell it by the look on their faces, but it's exciting to see these people that you hadn't seen in so long. So that's the first stage. In the second stage, our energy starts to gather in our chest area. And people who have been awake while this was happening talk about it as as if tiny threads are breaking in your extremities, and it doesn't hurt, it just feels a little strange. And all the energy that is going to leave, that is really the real you, is gathering in your chest area. And it leaves either through the chest wall or through the top of the head. People at the deathbed may see gray mist above the body, and that is you. It looks like a gray mist, but your energy level is still increasing. And when it'll look to the people around the bed as if suddenly you disappeared, or the mist disappeared. What happened was your vibratory rate, remember we talked about a higher vibratory rate we're going to, that vibratory rate got high enough that they couldn't perceive you anymore. And you form into a body. You're still attached by the spirit, by that silver cord, which is a biblical term, but that's what it looks like. It's a cord that's sort of glowy silver, and it attaches you to your body. It's what kept your body alive all these years. Now, the feeling of dying, this process of leaving your body, is really the start of that actual death. That's very pleasurable. People who've been through it, who have said, if they talk about it, they say it felt good. They say it was exciting. Some of them say it almost feels orgasmic to be suddenly free. Because think about it, you were trapped in a boat anchor. You were trapped in an almost dead body. Suddenly you feel light, happy, healthy, terrific in every way. That's really the sort of characterizes the second stage of the death process. Now, the third stage is it's a time of danger, because your silver cord is fraying and it's going to break. Once it breaks, that body is going to die. And if there are people around that bed who love you, they're going to go, oh, feel for a pulse. Oh, he's or she is dying. Oh, are they already dead? Oh, this is terrible. People will be mourning you right there in front of you. And your instinct is to say, wait a minute, I'm here, I'm fine. What is wrong with you guys? You can't do that, because if you try to communicate with the living, your vibration will slow, basically. It's hard to even know how to express it. Your vibration will slow. And when it does, you will stop perceiving. Remember, we were talking about the loved ones around the bed. We need those people. And if we can't perceive them, we're stuck. People talk about ghosts. I've had people tell me, oh, those are not real. Well, they are real. And many of them are people who were distracted at the wrong time, and they missed the boat, basically. They've got to be then rescued. And what happens is that they get trapped out of time, because there is no objective time. Once they're not in a material body, they're stuck. So for the next 100 some odd years, they may go through their same routines over and over in the same place. That's so tragic, because they're missing so much fun. So if there's no advice that you remember from tonight except this one bit, please, when you are out of your body, do not pay any attention to the living. You can help them from where you're going, but you can't help them now. So you're then, this is the third stage, what I think of as the third stage, when you are beginning to leave, because your loved ones will be around you, they'll be urging you fast. And that's, by the way, I think why they show up, because it's no more a natural process for you to engineer your going to the next level than it was when you were a baby for you to engineer getting into the world. You needed a little help. But you need help to get to the next level too. So what happens is that they will come around you, and together you all raise your vibratory rate just enough to get to the next level. You may look at the bed then, and when you do, you'll see it starting to look vague, gray, vapory, and then it just disappears. The way you would think if you were looking up, that's what you would think the afterlife would look like, kind of vague and stuff. That's what the world looks like to you as you're leaving it. And you might go through a gray fog. People see complicated things. Sometimes they'll see a stairway or something. Very few people see a tunnel. The tunnel seems to be an artifact of near-death experiences, and that's all. So when you, there's a theory, I have a theory of why it happens, but I'll give you that in just a minute. So then what happens is that the gray sort of around you clears as you reach that next level, which usually is what we call level 3. And you see around you the most beautiful place you can possibly imagine. It looks like the earth, but it's beautiful. There, nothing ever decays, nothing ever dies. The flowers will turn their faces to you and virtually smile at you. Everything smells good. It sounds good. It tastes good. It's just beautiful when you get there. That's the overwhelming reaction of people who have died when they talk about their arrival place is just awe that it could be so perfect. And that's the 4th stage of death. Then you're starting the rest of your life, which is eternal.
Wow. Well, please explain what you mentioned about a near-death experience.
Yes. The question, most of in fact, virtually all of the communications from which I've built this understanding of reality were received before 1950. We had a heyday of communications in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. I never saw a tunnel, ever. I'm not saying they don't exist in that literature, but I never saw one. And I've never talked to anybody who has either. But then suddenly we get, in 1975, we get the wonderful Raymond Moody's Life After Life. And everybody's talking about tunnels as if that's a natural part of dying. Why? Well, I think the reason is that the lowest afterlife levels that we've got to go through to get where we're going are really bad. Jesus called it the outer darkness. The lowest level is horrible. It's the punishment level. People who are put there by themselves and no one else, but that doesn't make it any less horrible. And they're also full of sort of demons who used to be people. So you don't want to be there. You got to get through there. And your loved ones and the beings around you when you're having a natural death can get you through there. But what happens with a near-death experience is suddenly you're out of your body. You maybe don't know what's going on. You might be actually about to die, and we don't want you to become earthbound. We've got to sort of hoover you through into a better level of reality, and we've got to get it done fast. And that's what they seem to do, is to open a little wormhole that will safely take you right through the bad part, right to the level 3 energy level. That seems to be what it is. It makes perfect sense to me, and everyone that I've discussed it with sort of feels the same way, that it's a rescue device, basically.
How fascinating. Well, of course, that leads me to a question that religion has talked about forever, and that is there a heaven and is there a hell?
There's only a heaven. Well, no, there is no fiery hell. There's no Satan. In fact, the physics of the afterlife seem to make it impossible for there to be a powerful negative entity that's in opposition to God. However, there are some nasties. It's just that they're very, very weak. And most of them are people, by the way, who chose, basically, because we have free will, some people choose to be disgusting. And it's not a good choice once you get to the afterlife. Believe me, it's not. But Jesus called it the outer darkness. It's not fiery, it's cold, it's smelly, it's the opposite of wonderful. Above that, there's a little better level, and then levels 3 through 5 are what the Vikings called the Summerland. Beautiful. And that's where most of us enter at level 3, and most of us then go somewhere in levels 3, 4, and 5, where there's a family homestead, where a spouse has built us a home or something. We travel by mind usually, and so it's pretty easy to go anywhere in this enormous, enormous reality. But that's what heaven is. There is no throne room. There's no anthropomorphic God. Nobody ever has seen God. So in some near-death experiences, people do encounter God, but those are not real experiences. Those are experiences that are created for us using the beliefs that we have in order to make us comfortable, so we're not confused when we go back, because we are going back. But when it's a one-way trip, you don't see God. You see Jesus, you see Buddha, you see Gandhi. There are a number of very, very advanced beings who are all over the afterlife and are frequently described and met by people. And they do tremendous good in trying to help people grow spiritually. But but there's, God is too important, too big, and too powerful, frankly, to fit into a body.
Wow, this is awesome. Let me ask you this, because I know many of the people out there right now are saying, where does reincarnation come into this? Can you address that?
Yes. There are a lot of things I didn't want to believe in, but I tried to just follow the evidence. And one of the things that's pretty evident is that we do live many lives. We tend to reincarnate in the same culture over and over, usually on the same planet, although most of us have taken a lifetime or two on other planets as well. But this is the hardest planet on which to make progress. So everyone wants to come here who's sort of tough and wants to really make a lot of progress quickly, because when you're here, there's a lot of negativity you've got to resist. Think of this. I used to think of it as a school, but each life is more like a trip to the gym. And when you're going to the gym and you want to ace it, you want to get above level 5 to level 6 and even level 7, which is the source level. And to do that, you've got to grow spiritually really fast. So all those machines in the gym, one of them in the spiritual gym is your mother-in-law. Another one is, God forbid, the loss of a child, a horrible marriage. I mean, all these are just an illness, a very serious illness. These are just machines to strengthen your spiritual muscles. That's what they are. And when you get stronger, when you grow spiritually by being here and by learning to love and forgive despite all that,
yes,
then you advance spiritually, and you can advance a lot in one lifetime if you know what you're doing. That's what it's for. That's all it's for.
Wow. Well, okay. Let me ask you this, Roberta. There are a lot of people who understand that linear time is just here on Earth.
Right.
Really no such thing as time. That being the case, is it not possible, you know where I'm going with this, for us to live multiple lives simultaneously?
In fact, that's what happens. Apparently that we're living them all at the same time, and I don't understand it either. A very advanced being said, you cannot understand reincarnation while you're on Earth. It will make no sense to you. But you do live many lives, and they all happen at the same time, and it'll make sense to you when you're here. Meanwhile, think of each lifetime as a dippered out of a much larger bucket, a bit of your life dippered out and then poured back in, so that you are that bucket. Each of those lifetimes was experiences which you had, which increase what's in the bucket, increase the value of it, the energy of it. That's really all those lifetimes are. We tend to mostly reincarnate with the same people, although it's mixed up quite a bit each time. We have different roles in each other's lives. And we, unfortunately, because of misunderstandings and the fact that important teachings have been turned into religions, most people have no clue what the meaning and purpose is of human life, and therefore we live many more lifetimes than we should need to. That's one of the things I'm hoping to help change.
Oh, I know you are. I know you are bringing about change. Your books are just so eye-opening and filled with so much love and joy. Now, a lot of people are going to be very interested in finding out. Well, they want me to ask you questions about communication with our loved ones on the other side. First of all, excuse me, how do we know when we're being contacted by a loved one versus a spirit guide versus something just passing through?
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
I think of our spirit guides as our loved ones because they're very often eternal friends. My primary spirit guide says he and I have had 17 lifetimes together, and he's plus guided me a couple of additional times. This is a man who's a glutton for pain, obviously. He's dealing with me all this many times. but as long as you are protecting yourself, and we'll talk if you'd like about how you can start to do that.
Yes.
You're not going to have negatives around you. You'll be very safe. But your loved one, if you recently lost a loved one, God forbid, if your dad died 5 years ago and it didn't occur to you to look for signs from him, you probably did get signs you didn't notice. And Dad's off playing golf now. He really doesn't have the time to keep doing stuff like that for you, unfortunately. So pay attention in the few months and especially just through the first year after any death. The kinds of signs they give are quite predictable. What seems to be the case is very advanced beings will take them in hand once they get there. Once your loved one gets there and says, I want to do something. They're suffering. They're in pain. I want to show them I'm okay. So a very advanced being will sort of take them back to this level of reality. We can't see them, but they're right here with us, and help them to give you signs.
Explain to everybody how you got, I didn't even mention your books. Wait a minute. Don't start yet. Don't start. You're going to want to get a copy of Roberta's books. The first one, The Fun of Dying. What a grabber for a title. And the second one, The Fun of Staying in Touch. And so you know where this show is going. And you can tell that Roberta is a loving being, filled with life and love. So Roberta, honey, Maxine Taylor, welcome to my very first edition of Movers and Shakers. And my first guest is one of my favorite people in the whole wide world. Some of you know Roberta Grimes, but if you don't know her now, you will. Roberta Grimes is an Austin-based business attorney who had two extraordinary experiences of light when she was a child. And what that did was it propelled her to study death and the afterlife. Now that may sound pretty heavy duty, but wait till you hear Roberta. I do have to tell you that this is not somebody, who just tuned in. Roberta, as I said, is a practicing attorney. She is a graduate of Smith College and Boston University School of Law. So, without further ado, please, I want to welcome you, Roberta, to Movers and Shakers. Thank you for being my first guest.
Oh, I'm so honored to be your first guest. These are big shoes to fill.
Oh, but you'll do them beautifully. Tell us how an attorney started writing books and got into all of this.
Well, I did the research because I was curious. Because I had those two experiences of light, I always knew there was something behind the curtain. I realized only after the fact that it's kind of scary to research the afterlife, because what if there's nothing there? What if it's all bad? I didn't even think about that at the time because I saw light, I heard a loving voice, and I had to know where that came from. So I spent about half a century just
everybody. This is